A very warm welcome to StudyIQ, my dear friends. I am Prashant Mavani. I hope you all are doing good. Today is 28th March 2020. Day is Saturday. Today we are going to start our discussion with this quote by Aristotle. Quality is not an act, it is a habit. This statement, this quote basically means that if you want to achieve quality in anything, if you want to improve your jump rope skills, if you want to increase your running capacity, if you want to improve your handwritings, if you want to improve your reading skills, if you want to improve your mathematical skills, if you want to improve anything in your life, right? You have to do that thing again and again. Repetition is the key. You have to do it so many times that it becomes natural. It becomes like your second nature. It becomes automatic. And once you are in that automatic zone, from there things will start, inclining. From there you will start improving. But for that you have to reach that point. You have to do it again and again. So if you're thinking that you will achieve good quality in anything, all of a sudden, no. You have to work for it again and again. Remember, this is the sutra of the day. Now, dear friends, if you are preparing for Civil Services Examination 2020, then we have a proper dedicated pen drive and tablet course available for it. To find out more about it, do check out StudyIQ.com. Today is Saturday, so we have total 4 articles on our table. Now you can see this editorial here. This editorial is about politics of Israel. Not important for your examination. If you have extra time, then you can quickly go through it, or else you can skip this editorial altogether. The first one that we are going to discuss and analyze in detail is this one. This one is about RBI, the measures taken by RBI. We are going to talk about so many things. Then we have a very interesting article written by a former diplomat, and he is talking about sanctions and coronavirus. And this topic is truly out of the box topic, outstanding point of view. Going to analyze it in detail again. So this is going to be number 2. And the last one, but again a very important article. This one is about food rationing. What are the 3 things that we need to change? So this is going to be our third topic of the day. Then we are going to jump over to some news items, and I have some questions as well for you guys. Now, dear friends, if you want to download the PDF of today's lecture, check out my Telegram channel. Please make sure that you share this lecture with other students. Hit the like button if you have learned something from today's discussion, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. RBI's guns boom. RBI has declared, RBI has announced some important decisions, and of course we know it very well. The things that RBI is doing now is to protect our economy. It is to mitigate the impact of coronavirus on our financial system. Of course, businesses were crying out loud for a relief, for some hand holding. And you can imagine it's quite natural as well. There are so many businesses, right? They are going to suffer a huge amount of losses. I'll give you one example of bakery business, right? Bakery items like biscuits and naan khatais, and there are so many other things. Now the thing is, imagine, right? A bakery will produce things generally on regular basis, and the products that they produce like naan khatais and other things, they can stay fresh for, I don't know, maybe 4 days, let's say, or maybe 5 days, or a week, let's say. What will happen if you have raw material, if your cooked stock, everything? A bakery, let's imagine, on an average would be having somewhere around 1 lakh rupees stock, isn't it? I'm talking about a small bakery. You can add everything, your raw material, your cooked items and everything. Just imagine if 1 lakh rupees. Now there are so many bakeries in our country. They are not going to operate for next 21 days. So imagine the loss. Now if they have borrowed money from someone else, if they are paying installment for the loan that business has taken for that shop, or maybe rent. If someone has rented this shop, he or she will not get that money on time, isn't it? So this is just one example. Food items. There are so many other things that can happen, and it will happen. So the most important thing that we find in RBI's latest measure is that Governor Shaktikanta Das has paid, you can say, a total focus. He is totally focused on liquidity, and that is again a very good thing as well. Now we have to understand this thing, that there is no one in this world, we can say that, I'm talking about leaders, right, governments or regulators. We don't have anyone who is expert in this thing, because this thing is unprecedented. This is something we are facing or we are witnessing for the first time. So we don't know exactly what will happen, but we are doing, or our regulators and governments, they are doing the best that is logical. They are doing the most rational thing. They are choosing the best option that is available. Out of the things that are available, they are choosing the best one. One thing that I want you guys to understand is that RBI governor's decision, as well as finance ministry's decision, or you can say this government's overall decisions, or so far all announcements are limited, right? They are not full-fledged, or they are not, you can say, government has not pressed that pedal. It's not going at max. Incrementally, we are going step by step. Government is going step by step, and as things are happening, government is taking decision based on the things that are taking place. So all these announcements by RBI governor and finance ministry can only be the initial steps needed to protect the economy. And the reason why they are taking baby steps, or they are trading very carefully, is because we don't know how long this is going to last, right? There is a sort of environment of uncertainty. So we don't know exactly how long we have to carry on this lockdown for. For now, it is for total 21 days. But you never know, right? A few weeks ago, we were not, who would have dreamt, thought about this thing, that we would be in such a situation. Now, one thing that we can expect from the government as well as this regulators is to act a bit more proactively, if possible, to plan ahead. And of course, in this time, not just our government, but all those countries who are under this lockdown phase, they are proactively thinking what will be their next step, what will be their step after that, fourth, fifth, sixth step, what are the things, A, B, C, D. They would be creating so many plans as well. So basically, the latest decision is, of course, a big relief for businesses. Like existing borrowers will benefit, assuming that banks pass on the cut quickly. Now, RBI has, I have one infographic as well. So repo rate has been chopped by 75 bips, or 0.75 percentage points, and repo rate at present is 4.4. So if you have borrowed a loan, so let's say you are paying 10,000 rupees per month on a loan, so that is going to come down. At the same time, you will get some moratorium as well for 3 months. For next 3 months, you don't have to pay this loan. You will start paying this loan or this installment after 3 months. So this will give you a breathing space. It will allow you to think. It will allow you to work for the money, or you can adjust, or you can collect the money. You can have enough. This will give you time to think. That's what the government is basically, by doing this thing, is giving businesses time so that they can take rational decisions. The sum total of new long-term repo operations is 1 lakh crore rupees, 1.37 lakh crore from each cash reserve ratio, and increase in marginal standing facility. Cash reserve ratio, let me explain it to you in a very layman's language. Just imagine if you have 100 rupees, right? And if I tell you to keep 20% of that 100 rupees on one side, you cannot use this 20%. So basically, you will keep 20 rupees on one side. So now you have 100 rupees, but 20 rupees is in reserve. So actually, you have 80 rupees. You have access to this 80 rupees only. Now, if I tell you that, if I reduce this cash reserve ratio, if I say that now you have to maintain only 10 rupees or 10% of the total capital that you have, so now you will have access to 90 rupees, isn't it? So that's what CRR is all about. When government, or when RBI basically reduces, not government but the RBI, when it chops this CRR, then it will give more money in the hands of the banks. So more money means more liquidity. So altogether, the total is somewhere around 3.74 lakh crore rupees. And earlier on, together with the 2.8 lakh crore pumped in through various market interventions since February, the Reserve Bank of India's liquidity injection amounts to a whopping 3.4% of our GDP. That's a very big amount. To be sure, there will be consequences. So heightened liquidity is also not that good. But at present, the best thing that we can do is to make sure that the whole system is lubricated. And as I told you earlier on as well, this is the main focus of Reserve Bank of India. Moratorium on term loans, deferment of interest. These are the things that are announced, and this will, as I told you, give some more time as well as more, you can say, breathing space for businesses, for individuals, for everyone, because these are extraordinary times. Now let's move on to next item. It's also a fight against punitive measures. Very interesting article. As I told you, it's a thing that we can certainly say this is out of box article. Now this issue of global pandemic is on, and what we need now is that world should unite, and we need to take a sort of unified action, particularly for our poor countries. Nations will have to provide relief in terms of two things. First one is medical supplies, and the second one is rebuilding shattered lives. Right? These are the two things, predominantly these are the two things that all the nations are trying to do, including India. Now, if you observe our society, like how you can observe this thing with your life as well. If you are coming from a very rich background, right, then you will have most of your friends will be very rich. If you are coming from a medium class, then most of your friends will be from that class. If you are coming from a poor family, then most of your friends will be poor, right, in terms of money. I'm not talking about their character, I'm just talking about the money, right? So this is just one example here. So this is how countries as well, this is how they behave too, because at the end of the day, countries are made up of people who are living in that particular country. So you will find that these developed countries, they have good understanding. They are competitors, but they have or they behave in, you can say, a particular way. Same thing goes with middle income countries, same thing goes with poor countries as well. So segmentation is not just in our societies, it is also at global level between various different countries. And you will see this thing that developed countries will help each other, they will give money to each other, but when it comes to a developing country, particularly least developed countries, when it comes to this sort of handouts, or when it comes to helping this poor, when I said that we need to help our poor countries, right, the poor countries of this world, then you will see that only those countries who are having a very good relationship with rich allies or generous rich allies, those countries, they have some sort of natural resources and these rich countries are interested in it, then you will see help will come to them swiftly. This is a rough, you can say, map. This one is particularly about the wealth per adult around the world, but you can use this one to have a quick glance over the rich nations and the poor nations of this world. And as you can see here, right, there are very few rich countries, but they have a huge amount of wealth with them. And then you have so many poor countries, and India again is not doing that great, because as I have told you earlier on as well, that the poorest of the poor are living in our country. In terms of quantity as well, we have a huge number, highest number, I can safely say, highest number of poor people are living in our country. Now, this article, as I told you, is written by a former diplomat. Very interesting article, and he is talking about sanctions. He is saying that there is one way with the help of which we can change the situation of developing countries. We can help them to fight this coronavirus effect, and that is by lifting sanctions on them, economic sanctions. Now, why do we apply sanctions at global level? Sanctions are a sort of, you can say, it's a sort of punishment. I'll give you one example. You know, when we were kids, and this is something that you find with kids, when out of group of, let's say, 5 kids, if one kid is not behaving, or if he or she has, broke some rules and things, then the other 4 kids, they will stop talking with this particular kid, and this will create a psychological pressure on this kid. So this kid will try to, impress 1 or 2 members, and will change. And so this is how it works. This works in a small group, and same thing works on a global level as well, that if a country is becoming a threat for international peace and security, if a country is doing things that will jeopardize international law and other things, then sanctions are applied on that particular country. There are various different things, right? Economic, trade, diplomatic, cultural, or other sort of restrictions are applied on that particular country, or altogether everything can be applied as well. And this is a very important tool in the hand of United Nations Security Council. So it's one of the most powerful peaceful means. Without a war, without any drop of blood, you can create huge amount of pressure on that particular country, and it is expected that sanctions will that will force a particular country to change the way they are doing things, or they will stop doing that wrong things. Now, peace enforcement is possible also. Peace enforcement is a good term. It basically means military takeover or attacking a particular country, but this is a very rare thing. The most horrible thing is you have applied a sanction on a particular country. That country has learned its lesson. It has improved things, but technical things are still there. Technical in the sense that formal documents are not yet signed, and you have not formally, the sanctions are still going on, and there are so many countries they are suffering from this sort of sanctions. Now, apart from United Nations, I'm sure you'd be aware about this thing if you are following my lectures for a bit of long time now. Then you know that apart from United Nations, which actually in reality United Nations is the only body that can apply sanctions, but we find countries like USA has a sort of this is how USA works. It will apply unilateral sanctions on a country with which USA is not getting on that well. If USA thinks that a particular country is a threat for USA, if that country is misbehaving and things, then USA will apply unilateral sanctions on that particular country, like economic, diplomatic, military, sports sanctions and other things. Now, technically, unilateral sanctions are not mandatory to any other state, but USA will force other countries. I'll give you an example of Iran. USA has applied sanctions on Iran for a very long period of time, and now USA has asked other countries like India. They have clearly told us that if we purchase oil from Iran, then they will not do business with us. They, in the sense, USA will not do business with India if we purchase oil from Iran, and we have stopped purchasing oil from Iran. So they have created that sort of pressure because it is a global power, big market. So US sanctions against Iran over the years broke the back of the country and forced it to reach an agreement to limit its nuclear activities. Now, USA's withdrawal from Iran deal has now resulted in Iran facing crippling sanctions. The same thing goes with the history of Iran and Kuwait. Iraq and Kuwait. Right? Kuwait was invaded by Iraq. Saddam Hussein's regime basically took over Kuwait, and I'm sure you might have watched that film of Akshay Kumar called Airlift. So that film is all about this Kuwait invasion of Kuwait by Iraq. So even after liberation of Kuwait, sanctions were carried on over Iraq to make it a bit more weak. And at present this COVID-19 is going on, and Iran is a country that is suffering from this coronavirus. And it is said that one of the reasons why it is suffering is because of these sanctions, because of these sanctions that are applied on Iran for a very long period of time now, that it has destroyed Iran's economic capacity. And because of this thing, Iran is not having all these facilities to treat people and other things. So this article is saying that what we can do is we can remove this sort of sanctions. This is the right time that we remove these sanctions on various different countries. And USA has this bad habit. USA came out with this CAATSA. CAATSA stands for this Countering America's Adversaries through Sanctions Act. The example that I gave you about Iran and not purchasing oil from Iran, a big pressure was created on us after this CAATSA law was passed by the Parliament of USA. At present, USA has applied sanctions on so many countries: Belarus, Myanmar, Cote d'Ivoire, Cuba, DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. There is one more, Congo, as well. So can you give me the name of the capital of Democratic Republic of Congo and another country called Congo that you find in Africa? I want the capital name of both countries' capital in the comment section. So this is your question number 1. I have one more question. As we move on, I'll ask you. So there are other countries: Zimbabwe, Syria, Sudan, North Korea, Liberia, Iran, Iraq, etc. Right? USA's sanctions are going on, and we don't know. Right? There is no estimate of losses. We don't know how much these countries are suffering. So one thing that we can do is we can get rid of these sanctions. We can relieve them from these restrictions. And once we remove these restrictions, their economical development or their growth will kick in. That wheel can come into motion. And without paying them money, without any sort of financial outlay as well, we can help them. We can give them a big relief, right? And it is very important from humanitarian point of view. This reminds us of this Winston Churchill's quote, like, never let a good crisis go to waste. This is, of course, a very severe crisis, but there is an opportunity as well in this crisis if we know how to identify and implement the things that are required. So very interesting article on sanctions and fighting coronavirus. Now let's talk about shift to upscaling food rationing now. Now, remember 2 days ago, we were talking about this 1.7 lakh crore package that was announced by Nirmala Sitharamanji. Now, in this respect, food security, this article is saying that the things that we have declared or the government has declared about food security is not enough. There are 3 things that we need to do. The first one is universal rationing. That means you should provide, or eligibility should include everyone. Even if you are rich, poor, above poverty, it doesn't matter. You should get free food for at least next few months. Why it is important, we'll talk about it. Second thing is expanded food basket. There are a few things that we need to add on. The things that we are offering is not enough. And the third and the most important thing is cooked food in urban areas, because we know that people working in unorganized workforce, they are the ones who are suffering. And today I have not just me, but if you go through newspapers, right, you will find there are so many pictures coming from various different states, right? People working in this unorganized sector, particularly those farm laborers and other laborers. They are carrying everything they can, and they are heading towards back home. And some of them have to travel 700, 500, 300 kilometers. This is humanly not possible. The reason I'm saying not possible is because everything is closed on your highways. Highways are closed, so you won't find a bottle of water or anything to eat in between. So, but it's very sad. Means this is a very desperate time, and they are under a sheer panic, and this is the only reason why they are doing this thing, right? They want to protect themselves, their family members, and it's good that state governments are helping these people. Now, India already holds the record for the largest number of malnourished persons in the world. As their ability to purchase food diminishes, a growing population of working people and their families will soon enter a phase of hunger and undernourishment. Normally in our country, those people who are below poverty line, they have this access to free food or food available at a very subsidized price. But the thing is, there are so many families, they will enter poverty. They are living right at the border, right? They are just above that border of poverty. So this 21-day lockdown will bring them under this poverty line. So it is important that we extend this food items, or this rationing should be universal. Even if you don't have biometrics, or even if you cannot prove, if you don't have that ration card and thing, then as well you should be able to get free food. I'm sure that there are few people out there, they will exploit this thing. They will gather more than that is required. But there are so many people that we need to care about too. So a little bit of loss is acceptable rather than seeing so many family going under hunger and undernourishment. If you go back in 1940s, then we can learn so many things from UK. UK came out with this fair shares. It was a sort of scheme, a policy. And under this scheme, individuals were given with this ration book. So you can collect, you can visit local grocery store and you can collect this ration food. And this ration was having so many things in it as well. It was not limited with just... they don't eat rice, but it was not, when I said don't eat rice, I mean to say that's not their regular diet. So bread, eggs, tin food, there are so many things that were included in this ration book, or things that you can take from this. Option was, there were many things were there on the menu. And interestingly, this was a very bad phase as well for UK in terms of war and scarcity, right? 1940s, World War II was going on. But life expectancy in England and Wales increased in this time period between 1941 and 50. The only reason is they were able to access food in good quantity, as well as it was more balanced. It was plate full of food was available. So if we go back in India's timeline, then we find that this British introduced this sort of food supply and adequate food for industrial workers back in 1942, and one of the reasons was that war was going on, so industrial products were quite required. So this was part of their big plan. But anyway, this was the inception of this sort of supply system. In mid-60s, India came out with this public distribution or PDS system. It provided National Universal Program till 1991. And it was made National Universal Program, and then till expanded till 1991. Then in 1990s it was made narrow, differential entitlements, like things for BPL, things for APL, everything was classified or segmented. Then in 2013 we got this National Food Security Act, and NFSA covers roughly 2/3 of all households in our country. So we are talking about what 66% households are covered under NFSA. So what we need to do now is the things that we should do to tackle this coronavirus crisis. The first thing is, as I told you, free ration of rice and wheat at double the normal entitlement must be distributed. The current entitlement is not enough. It's not actually following this Indian Council of Medical Research guidelines. So we need, minimum requirement per person per day should be provided. Recently, government has declared that it is going to double the ration, but the extra 5 kilo that you are getting, that is the only thing that will be free. The first 5 kilo, you have to pay for it. So it should be totally free. Second thing, we should not limit ourselves with just rice and wheat. Government should provide cooking oil, sugar, salt, lentils. Even soap must be provided, included in this list. It is very important to fight coronavirus. And the third one is providing cooked meals to workers and migrants. You can add milk, eggs, vegetables. All these things are important to fight malnutrition. At the same time, you have to provide, or government should provide cooked food, because workers and migrants, they don't have any place to cook. So these are the three things that we need to change. And now let's move on to news items. Center flags gap in screening travelers. This has been written by Rajiv Goba. He has asked the states to effectively monitor 15 lakh international air passengers who came from 18th to 23rd March 2020. Column sub-collector jumps quarantine, and thank God he's suspended. Right? It's very sad. A person who has cleared IAS exam or UPSC exam, and he is jumping quarantine. This is very sad thing and a very bad example. It's good that he is suspended. India to join WHO drug trial. India is all set to join World Health Organization's Solidarity trial, and I have a question for you guys. There are 4 different drugs, or combination of these drugs will be tested. So can you give me the name of all these 4 drugs in the comment section? And then we have a very sad news that, we were talking about this Gurudwara attack in Kabul, a man from Kerala, he was involved in this thing. So that's a very sad thing. And this is the picture. Again, it's a very bleak picture. Very, it's sad to see this sort of things, like workers. They're struggling. Can you imagine their pain? They're out there, and latest finding is that coronavirus spreads, like flies can also spread this coronavirus. In the same way, this flies, they sit on defecation, and then they sit on your food. In the same way, it can spread this coronavirus. So this sort of scenarios are not good from that point of view as well. And the last one is about global news. British PM tests positive for coronavirus. Boris Johnson has got infected with coronavirus. This is a very sad news for UK, but he is going to direct the country. He's going to be in isolation, of course, but he will use this latest technology and things to direct his team. And Spain's health ministry reported another 7,800 infections overnight, and the total is 64,059 infected people. In one night, 769 have passed away. And Spain says that 9,444 health workers have contracted coronavirus. So that's a very sad thing. And that's everything in today's discussion, dear friends. Tomorrow is Sunday, so there will be no Hindu analysis. I will see you on Monday now. But of course, I will see you with daily financial news analysis later on today. Enjoy your studies. God bless you all. Jai Hind.